Tiny House. I'm Barry Smith.
And I'm Beth.
Today is Wednesday.
Yes, it is.
March
We're
24th.
Later, we like to do them on Tuesdays or Mondays.
We do like to do them on Tuesdays or Mondays. Today's a Wednesday. We've taken kind of a 2-week hiatus.
We have.
Which was not a hiatus for vacation. It was just, I think, we were consumed by other things.
Well, and I got my second COVID dose.
Right.
And I just had to sleep. I
Yes.
mean, I just had to sleep. So, yeah, I wasn't too available.
Well, they say that the second dose, and I've had my first. I get my second dose on April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
But
That'd be fun to watch.
Oh yeah, but it's they say the second dose is worse than the first.
Yeah.
From a lot of different kind of standpoints. A lot of people have flu-like symptoms. A lot of people have very sore arms. Beth just slept. Never seen anything like it. It drugged her. Oh my gosh, maybe they've changed your genes to be sleepy.
Who knows? God, we don't know, do we? But we're hopeful.
We don't know. It's a shot in the dark.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, thank you. But hopefully it will work.
Hopefully.
I mean, I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But again, welcome.
We have many things to do and many places to go, so we need it to work.
That's exactly right. We're not going to stop much longer. I'm kind of getting stir crazy here.
Yes.
We changed to daylight saving time.
Yes, we don't love that.
I don't mind either daylight saving time or standard, but I would like it to be just one,
the other.
Not both.
Well, and for my real job, I work in talking to people all over the U.S., and I have to figure out now, because some places don't convert and some places do, so then we're trying to talk about what time we're going to have a conversation, and thank goodness for iPhones that convert it, but not every, and some of the calendar programs convert it. But it's a little like Arizona doesn't change, and everybody else has, and Georgia's now talking about not changing. So it's just really confusing. And he's turning off my phone because I forgot. I have to turn off my notifications.
Every podcast. Can you please put your phone on airplane mode?
I live on my phone all day, every day. We have to talk about what we're wearing. I bumped my microphone. Sorry.
Don't bump your microphone. If you're going to bump your microphone, at least do it artistically.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we are wearing Radio Tiny House merch.
Yay!
Our
we're
shirts.
Excited.
We are. These are going to be available on our Radio Tiny House website.
Yep.
Through our merch store there. So if you like what we're doing and you'd like to support us, buy a T-shirt. We're going to have them in different styles, different sizes. That's important because I could not wear hers.
No.
She could wear mine.
Yes.
I could not wear hers.
Right.
We'll eventually have hats because I like to wear a hat. And coffee cups, and Beth got this really cool thermal mug thing.
No, water bottle. Thermal water bottle.
It's really cool.
Yeah, so we're
and with ice in
it,
it's
store.
even cooler.
Yeah, so soon we'll have those up and going, but we started out with this as our prototype, and so we're working on the Radio Tiny House T-shirts.
They've been worn in public.
Yes, we did wear them in public. We went to the Georgia Tiny House Festival.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later too. But yeah, we didn't.
Although you couldn't see them because it was so cold, we had to have all of our jackets and all of our things that we could wear. I was freezing.
It was chilly. It was very windy.
I was still in the middle of my nap time for
Yes.
COVID, so I was ready to go home. I wasn't doing so. I got grumpy like a little 3-year-old.
About 1:30, she was dragging behind me, kicking her feet.
If I'd had a stroller and a sucker, I would have been in better shape. Oh, but I was not.
She was looking for her blankie at that point. I literally probably needed a blankie because she was cold.
I was freezing. And then Barry finally gave me his coat, so I had on just a windbreaker, but I had on a long sleeve shirt, a short sleeve shirt, a windbreaker and another windbreaker, and I was still ready to go. I was freezing.
So my shirt got some exposure, even though I had a long sleeve shirt under it.
My shirt got no exposure.
At least I was warm.
But I did bump into somebody who recognized us.
Yes, that's
she's
true.
She's a member of our group, and I've known her personally. But I was so covered up and bundled up, I'm not sure how she even saw me. But I was cold.
Yeah, it was an interesting.
I mean, it really wasn't that bad. It
wasn't like it was 12 degrees. It was probably 45 degrees.
But the wind, I was just freezing to death.
Yeah, the wind chill was at least in the.
I mean, it's March.
30s.
I thought it'd feel like March. It did not feel like March.
This is Georgia, honey.
I know. I don't know.
It can be 70 degrees one day and 28 the next.
Well, it was 45, and we were talking about going back the second day. I'm like, there's no way. And there was another reason I didn't want to go, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. But needless to say, if you like the shirts,
they've been exposed, but not really.
And they'll be available probably this week.
Yeah,
we're trying to get our
store.
We're trying to get everything set up and.
But this is a sneak peek.
It is a sneak peek, and again, it says Radio Tiny House on it.
Yes.
So, buy them. I mean, if you like them. If you don't like them, then you can buy them and just put them in your drawer. I've done that before.
We'll do a bunch of tiny house shirts, so we won't just be limited to Radio Tiny House. But once we get our store up, that's Barry's job.
I want to do one that says, I live a sheddy life.
Yeah,
something like that.
You can.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, see, here's the problem with us. We are people who work. We have projects at home to do too. And then we do the podcast here, and we also do the YouTube video podcast.
Right.
Sometimes we get behind, especially since we're in the middle of doing our shoffice.
Right, and we're both getting ready to embark on some additional podcasting.
Yes, and of course, then I have to take naps. Yes. And that's the problem, because I have to get my nap
I'm going to start putting Beth and Evie down for a nap. Evie's our granddaughter, down at the same time every day for a nap.
Well, I also take a medicine that makes me sleepy.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm in nap mode these days. Naps are great.
Naps are great. There's nothing wrong with a nap. Our grandson will not nap.
No, he's against it on every level.
Our eldest,
I'm for it on every level.
Our daughter used to say no nap.
Yep.
But our grandson will not, and he'll look at you and say, "Wow, I'm really sleepy."
That he would not give in to napping. I mean, he's 7. He thinks that's just little kid stuff.
Close your eyes, take a nap. I mean, if I'm sleepy, I'll do it. If I'm driving, I won't, of course. But I have done that once.
I try to keep
which led to a great experience, actually. I fell asleep on a road on the Autobahn in Germany. We were traveling from Germany. I had arranged a farm stay one time we went to Germany.
I don't know if I even know this
story. This is how we wound up in Colmar. I fell asleep and almost hit a lorry truck. And
I'm trying to keep him awake and keep him, the one who's a napper.
There's no sign of any accommodations anywhere near us. And Beth says, we are getting off at the next exit.
Well, we had been up all night on the flight.
Yes.
And then we got our car and we started to drive to our destination, and Barry was not staying awake.
No, it was horrible. There were no Starbucks anywhere around. I couldn't find anything.
Right.
But we pulled off the Autobahn and found this absolutely gorgeous town called Colmar. It's just
so picturesque. It had half timbered houses, and we stayed in a hotel that was like 400 years old or something.
Well, it had been an inn since 12 something.
Oh, well then that's a little longer than 400.
Yes, I mean it was amazing. The stairs were there were thick pieces of wood that had grooves from where all the people had. It was the mattresses weren't from 1200, which is nice.
I didn't care,
but it was great. Yeah, we conked out.
I was napping again.
Had great meal. It was just a phenomenal.
Maybe this Radio Tiny House podcast should be called Beth Takes a Nap.
Beth Takes a Nap.
Places I have napped.
Well, you and my dad could write a book.
I know. I didn't used to be so bad, but my medicine makes me sleepy. And staying awake all night on a plane makes me sleepy.
Yeah,
too.
Well, yeah, because I sleep well for takeoff and landing, but everything in between I don't sleep well for. So, we've covered naps and shirts, and yes, we have digressed a little bit, but it's fun. So, one of the top reasons, this is segment 2, one of the top reasons for going sheddy is... And tiny is style.
Style.
Style. You can, And we've talked about this a little bit before about how what's that old song? They're all made of ticky tacky and they all look just the same.
Little houses on the hillside made of ticky tacky or something.
And you know, most houses and subdivisions
all look the
vary
same.
A little bit. Maybe every fourth house is exactly the same. Outside colors might be a little bit different. Stonework might be different. Yards may look a little bit different, but they all pretty much look the same. Brown, yes.
Mostly they're brown.
That's the big color in Atlanta these days.
Yeah.
It's just kind of brown.
Or until spring comes and we have pollen and there's
everything's
brown, yellow.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what color your house or your car is. Once pollen season hits, everything is a bright pine yellow.
Right.
If you don't know what pine pollen is, then
consider yourself lucky.
We will post pictures.
Yes, on Pine Pollen Day, that'd be great. Or week.
It's quite disgusting. Everything is gritty and it's nasty.
Yeah.
But we do have green trees year round, which is nice.
I mean, hey, one of the reasons we chose to move back here after living all over the U.S. is because of the seasons, right? We get spring, we get fall, we get summer, we get long summer, hot summer. We get winter.
4 days of winter.
Well, I mean, we get cold.
We get cold.
We get winter, so we get 4 full seasons, and actually we'll call it 5, and one of the seasons is pollen season.
Right.
How's that?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what or allergy season. You could call it either way because they all coincide.
Right, but we have like super pollen season.
But style with tiny houses and shed homes, you can create your own.
Yeah,
thing.
because. And another, you have full reign, if you will, because you're building it yourself, usually, sometimes, or you're helping design it, right? So if you're doing, in my mind, tiny houses encompass tiny houses on wheels, small shed homes, cabins, I don't know, boats if you wanted to.
Yeah,
I mean,
schoolies,
we're talking
all
about
sorts
living
of things.
small, but the important piece of that is that you have the opportunity to really be creative and do your own thing. You're not buying a white whatever box or a brown in Atlanta, a brown box.
If you buy whatever you buy, usually, whether it's a tiny house on wheels or tiny house on a foundation or a shed home
or
barn, whatever you buy, you get to
make it your own.
Make it your own and do all the interior stuff yourself. You can lay out plans.
Some people aren't able to do that, but they still, even if you do something small and you're doing something a little off the beaten path,
right?
You usually end up being a partial designer yourself, even if you don't do the work yourself.
Right.
So I think it gives you a lot of opportunities to put your own stamp on it, create your own style. Obviously, we're influenced by a lot of people. Barry and I have watched HGTV forever, and so we've seen a lot of style there.
We watched HGTV when there was actually Home in HGTV or Garden in HGTV.
Yeah, Home and Garden. That's right. We love some of the gardening shows, and now Barry's found them on what is that thing you found them
Discovery Plus. Man, they're everywhere.
So talk about reusing content. Discovery Plus has picked up every old show you've ever seen, and they stuck it on Discovery Plus, and you can have it only for another $4.99 or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's or $6.99 if you don't want
and now
commercials.
We've got 4 of here and 10 of there and 12 of that and something else.
We cut the cable because of it was getting ridiculously expensive, and then everything else was moderately priced. But now they've gone up on certain things and some of the things that we want to watch, and I think it's probably more expensive now than
But it just
cable.
feels that it's a trickle.
It is a trickle.
It feels not as expensive. Well, you also have the opportunity to turn them off if you don't like them.
But we also get everything we could possibly want, and we don't get a package that offers this, but it doesn't offer that.
And then we can't find anything to watch. But that's another problem.
I've never had that problem.
We flip a lot.
I can watch some really weird stuff. Maybe I can watch some weird stuff while you're napping.
I was going to say, then you can do that while I'm napping.
Yes, I do watch that. And sometimes I'll look at her and she'll be sound asleep, and I'll go, honey, this is the program you wanted to watch.
Yeah, but I have to have that nap.
So
anyway,
that's what she just says.
But we digress.
Just record it. Yes. So style, you can have it be anything you want it to be. On the inside, on the outside, there are some limitations, especially if you're doing drag and drop or ready removable.
Let's get our definitions right.
Because those are kind of all pre-made on the outside. So, but you do have some leeway on the inside.
Well, there are kit homes that you can get. There are metal buildings you can convert. There are so many things where you can have your own stamp and style, as opposed to walking into the subdivision and picking out what the builder has offered you.
Well, Beth doesn't know this yet, but I'm starting a company that does tiny homes based on old Walt Disney designs for homes in Epcot, for homes in the desert, for homes under the sea, things like that.
Okay, cool.
I want to do that. I think that a lot of people would.
I'm all in.
Would kind of like that look.
Cool. I love it.
So I love that. So anyway, style. If you have it, or if you don't, then it's yours.
Right. Yeah. I mean, not everybody has a great sense of style, but most people kind of can gravitate to the things that they like. And when you're doing something small, it's okay.
Yep.
And that leads into, and it may not be in order.
Don't go out of order.
I'm like, Barry's got the order up here. That leads into, we're doing something in our office that's very different.
Yes.
I've never seen anybody do what we're doing. So we're in the back part.
We're decorating the entire roof with tinsel. It's going to be amazing.
Be awesome. Now, we're in the back part under the loft in a lofted barn rent to own that we didn't think we were going to own. So we rented it and then we ended up buying it.
Right.
So we're in the podcast under the loft. It's about 6'3" in here, I think. And then there's a loft above. And then this space is about 7 feet wide, I think is right. Mm-hmm. So it's like 7 by 6, so small. And then Barry's got a mirror image behind us where he does his voice acting and does his recording. So it's a little bit more sound. What would you call it?
Well, it's not soundproof technically, but it's just sound absorbent.
Okay. So anyway, so we have that shared space in back here under the loft, and then the front is going to be my, I don't know what yet. We won't call it a she shed because it's going to be an everybody shed, but homeschooling, video studio.
We'll just call it a people shed.
A people shed.
Or a person's shed.
A person's shed. But I'm kind of getting into decorating it. It's taken us a while to get all the projects pulled together. And lumber prices, we were kind of waiting and deciding what we were going to do with that. And we had astrofoil or something on the ceiling that we'll talk about more in depth when we show that thing. So we had to come up with an answer about what we're going to do for ceiling insulation. So it's taken us a while to get where we wanted to get. And next year, probably not going to put mini splits in it this year, probably next year. So that'll be an addition.
Right.
But I think by the time we get the opportunity to imprint our style on it, it will be quite unique. It will be cost effective because obviously we don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on a shed that we're not living in. So I'm excited about getting it done, but also we have a lot of projects, so it may take us another month or so to get it done.
We have projects
every day.
And now that Beth calls this time of year, I guess we have 6 seasons because there's building season.
Oh, right, there's building season.
So we're getting ready to embark on we were gifted, shall I say, the gift of a wonderful Primo grill.
We weren't really gifted.
Well, no. Well,
that's true. We'll say that. Wink, wink.
Wink, nudge, nudge. Wink, wink.
All right.
So we have a new Primo grill that we have to pick up. It's the XL, so the thing's massive.
Weighs 250 pounds.
Just the grill.
Just the grill.
So we are.
So it's like a Komodo dragon, and
it's like a big green egg kind of thing,
but it's big and oval, so it's monstrous.
But we are getting ready to embark on another deck building project.
It's heavy, and so we need a place to put it, and we have some handicap accessibility issues from some of our family members, so we're trying to put it, because if any of you've seen our house, it's 3 feet off the ground, so we have steps.
And it's hilly to get to the house. It's
hilly,
not.
Because we live in the mountains.
Depending on the weather, it's actually precarious with mud and
So in order to make
snow.
it more handicap accessible for our family members, we are building a low floating deck with a ramp because we have the grill. So we're working on that and trying to make it all work. But we have to get the interior fixed first.
Right.
So
the interior's got to be done first, and then we build a deck for the new grill.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, that's why sometimes we get behind on our podcast.
Yeah. So there's always something to do. So and we know y'all are busy too, and it's and we appreciate you listening to us. Even sometimes we banter. a topic I want to talk about today is spring has sprung, which means the possibility for all kinds of weather. Snow, tornadoes, high winds. That was Renee, by the way, that was just calling you. And it's, this year we have a chance from looking at the reports that a friend of mine who's a meteorologist posts occasionally on Facebook. We have a slightly higher chance of some very inclement weather and some heavy storms in our area. But we want to be prepared for that. One of the things that struck me about the Uri winter storm in Texas and that kind of came down all through the Midwest and everything, well, actually most of the country, I guess, Uri impacted, is that people just flat out weren't prepared for that type of a storm.
Well, if you live in Texas, you just don't expect that. But yes.
But you should always, no matter where you live, there's freak stuff that could happen. We live in an area that gets, now we live in the mountains, so we don't get too many tornadoes up here, but they are possible. But we also are in an earthquake zone. We have.
Don't talk about that.
Well, I mean, it's been years since we did the last earthquake I remember was 25 years ago here when we lived in Atlanta, in our house in Atlanta, and something wasn't right, and I got up and our floor was just kind of rolling. But we also had an earthquake when I was a kid in high school. I remember the lights just going back and forth. So it does happen here. But if you live anywhere or wherever you live, there's always some kind of weird stuff that can pop up or happen. You might get invaded by locusts and eat all your crops. Who knows? But we all need to be prepared for things like that. So have water on hand. I read many accounts of people trying to, go fill up their bathtub with water, but there was no water for them to be able to flush the toilet or drink or anything like that. So, if you've got the space to do it, I know living tiny, it's a little bit more difficult to prepare food and things like that. Make the space. We go to a store in basically the suburban Atlanta area and buy tin cans of food. We have rice on hand. We have, in our house, we have probably about a month's worth of food. And we have access to water. We have, of course, a well. We can go into other people's wells around here. But we also try to keep water on hand for things. So it doesn't take much to do. You don't have to spend a ton of money. We're not talking about preparing for the end of the world or for the zombie apocalypse or for, Martians invading the earth or anything like that. Because Martians wouldn't invade the earth. Now, Venusians might, but Martians would not. But just to have enough for you and your family. Federal government says, FEMA recommends, 3 days. I don't think that's enough. I think you need to have at least, at a minimum, you need to have 7 days worth of food and water for you and your family. And these, you can buy stuff online, but if you're not going to eat it, then it does you no good. So if you go and buy one of those multi-packs of food, freeze-dried food, there are a lot of people that won't eat half the stuff in those. Now, if you're starving to death, you'll eat anything. But in a 7-day period, you're probably not going to starve to death if you've got something on hand. So just go buy foods that can store that you're going to eat.
And you have to have a way to prepare them. So does that mean soups that you can warm up over a fireplace?
Right.
Does that mean you get your Primo grill that you're lucky enough to have, or
right.
you grill outside,
you
or
grill
some way to boil water? There's little camping Coleman stoves.
Right.
And of course, you have to be outside so you don't get carbon monoxide. But there's, if we have a month's worth of food, right? It's mainly carbs because that's
right.
what you can store. It's rice and oatmeal, and we have chickens that lay eggs, but you can get powdered eggs. You can get powdered. And that's just from Walmart, by the way.
Right, and I saw some powdered butter the other day.
Powdered butter.
You could get powdered
there's lots
butter.
of things that you could do. So if we have a month's worth of food, the last few days of the month that we are talking about would be kind of boring, but we would not be hungry.
Right.
So I think make sure you have a way to prepare things. Have pre-packaged things. If you got kids mac and cheese. Yes, it's not the healthiest, but you can do it. There's lots of ways that you can prepare yourself to be available to have, food.
Right.
Now, you're challenged if you're all electric. I mean, there's a heat problem there. There's a cooking problem there.
Right.
So there are so many ways to look up online how to solve that problem. But just think about it.
Right.
If you just thinking about it is, a lot of people just haven't even thought about it.
Yeah, I used to have a blog and a website about prepping, and it was kind of common sense prepping. There's lots of stuff out there about prepping. Digging a bunker and having 5 years worth of food. I'm not talking about anything like that, and we don't do anything like that. But it's important to just be ready for, and weather is one of the things that we can all prepare for. Even if you don't live in an area that gets tornadoes, you might have one day. But at some point in time, everybody, I mean, unless you're off grid, well, and then you're going to have it too. Everybody experiences power outages for one reason or another. They can be for an hour, or they can be for a week. I mean, it's common here because of all the pine trees. When we have heavy snow or we get an ice storm, those pine trees just topple. The limbs fall on power lines, and people are without power for 4 or 5 days sometimes. So right. It's not, you don't have to go out and spend $1 million on being prepared, but just having enough food for you and your family for a week, and water, or whatever your beverage of choice is, but water is probably the best thing, will go a long way. If you've got kids and they want to eat Cheerios and have milk, there's powdered milk you can buy. If they like eggs, there's powdered. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can buy, and it doesn't cost a fortune. You can buy a lot of this stuff at sporting goods stores. You can buy it online, but just because we may have some violent weather this spring, I think that everybody should just be prepared. So I'm not trying to sell one thing over another. I don't have a brand that I like. I don't have a particular food that I mean, look at me. I pretty much like every food. There's some foods that I can't eat because I'm allergic to them. But so take that into account. If you're allergic to a food, make sure that it's prepared in such a way, or when you buy it, it doesn't have whatever you're allergic to in it. But just be prepared. You can even do it in a tiny house.
Yep. And as a professional organizer, I'm all about decluttering and being minimalist in a way that means don't keep stuff you're not using, keep stuff that's important. When you're in a tiny house, that really resonates. So you have to figure out where to store it. Under bed storage is a great thing. Get these big number 10 cans. They have dried stuff in them. Put it under your bed. You're good. So there's lots of ways to do it.
Yes, there are lots of ways to do it. But there are also lots of excuses. But just don't be that person that, your town gets hit by a tornado and your house is still standing, but you have no food, no water, no nothing, and waiting on the federal government to come help you.
All right.
Because they're always a day late and $1 short. All right. So that's my message on being prepared. We did a sneak peek. Well, Beth did. Yeah. I drove. But Beth did a sneak peek of the cottages on Vaughn in Clarkston, Georgia.
Right.
And what was your...
So I've been talking about it a little bit. It's very difficult. So I think tiny houses and shed homes encompass a lot of different styles, right? Tiny houses on foundations, which is what we advocate. Tiny houses on wheels, that's another way to live. That's not something that we're putting in we've lived in an RV, but it's not something we really specialize in, but it's okay. And then of course now there's something called the Microlife Institute in Atlanta, and they're really advocating for tiny homes and affordable homes for people to live in.
Right.
They found a little tiny plot of land in one of the close-in suburbs of Atlanta, and they're building what is kind of been called a pocket neighborhood. Ross Chapin, who's an architect that I think is fabulous, coined the term probably back in the 90s, I would guess. But anyway, pocket neighborhoods are just little pockets of small houses that are within cities. So we were able to go to the cottages on Vaughn. I've been stalking them for 2 years. Right. They're finally building, and I did a sneak peek. So we're going to add that to the video portion of this because I've got it. I put it on my phone.
Right.
Of course, when I went to visit, it was a complete mud pit because we've had all kinds of rain. And so they had OSB like boards thrown all over the ground, and they had a big giant truck delivering, I don't know, roofing or something.
Yeah, that was
I
pretty
couldn't
cool.
really get great video, but as it continues, I will add more. But you can see the houses. They're, you know, spray foam on the inside. They're concrete. What do you call that? Hardy planked on the outside. They don't have any paint on them yet, you know, but they're really building them to be quality, higher end finishes, if you will, but inexpensive because of a lack of square foot. Now, it will be a lot per square foot because you still have to have water and sewer and all those things and land. But it will be a lot less. I think the houses are, I don't even want to say what the price range is because I'll probably get it wrong. But anyway, so I'll post a little video peek of that, and then we'll go back and interview them. I've already talked to them about that.
They're more expensive than zero.
Yes, they're more expensive than a drag and drop shed on somebody's property, maybe.
Yeah, when we went, it was a beautiful day, but it was, as we pulled into the construction area, I noticed that the houses pretty much matched the color of the dust that was on the ground. Yucky. It was all very beige. But
Barry thinks he picked up a nail in his tire while we were there, so he may not let me go quite. I may have to walk in next time.
No, I don't know where I picked up that nail. It was probably there, but it could have been anywhere, you know. Yeah. But they were all cute. I think it's going to be a great.
I think the smallest one is 200 square feet. Now, Georgia code originally started at 500 square feet. So we had the code to be able to build 500 square feet.
Right.
And bigger. But many of the subdivisions, anything in close to town, is going to tell you, no, you can't build 500 square feet. You have to have bigger.
Right.
Right. So they're breaking a lot of barriers by doing that. And that's the next thing I want to talk about. The other thing we saw at the Tiny House Festival.
Oh, yes. Well, when we get there, we'll talk about that.
Well, I don't know that it's on your list. It's on my list.
Well, I have that. I don't know. Well, okay. Y'all can't see our list, but maybe we'll put that up one day and you can.
Nah, that would take all the fun out of
it. So I think the Cottages on Vaughn is going to be a great neighborhood, and I think that the people that live there are going to really enjoy it. I mean, you know, it's...
Yeah, I'm envious, actually. I'd love to be able to just buy a cottage and have it in town.
Well, maybe they should have one available that you can just go pay to stay in.
I don't know. I'm sure somebody, if they can, will buy one to make it an Airbnb.
Yeah.
So let's skip that one, the news, and go to the Georgia Tiny House Festival.
You want to skip the news?
Yeah, that's not news I want to talk about.
Oh, then I was going to go...
I don't even know what that means.
That's like a news thing on TV.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, all right, Georgia Tiny House Festival.
All right.
We went.
It
was cold.
I froze myself to death.
It was windy.
It was cold and windy, but here's the thing. I guess because of COVID, there were hardly any what I call tiny houses there.
There were two.
Yeah, well, there was two more that I want to talk about.
Okay, I only saw two that were there.
And then the rest of them were schoolies.
Right.
Right? And people traveling the world in schoolies and vans, which is... You know, hey, listen, if you want that lifestyle, that's great. But we are more focused on building things here and buying land and living a different kind of life than being on the road full time.
Right. We prefer, mostly we prefer a rural kind of lifestyle. Although there are days when we go, you know, it would be nice to live in town in Charleston, South Carolina.
Right. Or Paris.
But Paris.
That's another problem. Anyway, so we went. I think this was a hard year for them. There weren't that many folks there. There weren't that many tiny houses. And honestly, people that are selling tiny houses because of the construction stuff are backed up. So they are probably not hauling their tiny houses and doing a lot of sales because they're backed up for a couple of years. Some of them a couple of months, a couple of years. So I don't know that was really what they wanted it to be. I mean, I'm just being honest. But here's the thing. I met... some people that were important for us.
Right.
I met a girl who does, she doesn't do a pop-up, but she does it. She takes her tiny house.
She takes her tiny house.
I guess you call it a tiny house, but it's a
It's
shop.
a tiny
She takes her tiny
shed.
Shop. No, it's a tiny house on wheels. But she takes her tiny house and takes it to like a pop-up store. So So she takes it lots of places. She was at the Tiny House Festival. We're going to interview her as part of our Work From Home series. She didn't really work from home, but she used her tiny home.
Well, she takes her home with her. Well, she doesn't live in her tiny home.
Yeah, it's not really a tiny
home.
But
technically,
it looks like a tiny home.
She could take her home with her.
So that we're going to interview her for the podcast. We also met the guy that owns Tiny House Atlanta, I think is what the name of it is. I think I got that right. And they basically are park model tiny homes.
Right. And Henry is a member of our group.
Right. And so we met him, and we're going to have him on the podcast. And the thing that's exciting about that is Atlanta has approved ADUs in certain building areas in their residential building code. An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. So that means if you're living in the right zoning in Atlanta, and we'll figure out, I've already been online, but I've figured out a lot of it, but then you can pull one of these products or build your own into your backyard, basically, and have a place for a granny flat, they call them, mom, dad to live, which has been off limits until recently. And you can have a roommate, if you will. You can't use them for short-term rentals. So they're not looking to craft a whole bunch of Airbnbs in people's backyards.
Right.
They're looking for additional low-cost housing. And so that's how they're approving them. So there's some different, ramifications about that, and it can get complicated. But my assumption is Microlife, who's here in Atlanta, or people like that will start crafting a lot of accessory dwelling units, which we need the housing in downtown Atlanta because Atlanta has really exploded. So that was good to see. I walked through. They still feel kind of mobile homey. If I was going to design one, it wouldn't look that way. It would be a little more upscale features. Right. But they're really inexpensive. $31,000 to $35,000 are the ones that we saw. Right. About $100 a square foot, basically.
And they come with everything unless you've got a family of 10. They come with basically everything you need.
300 square feet or so. Yeah. I got stuff going on my phone. I'm trying to keep up with. Anyway.
So we're going to say you've got stuff going on in your lap because you've got your phone in your lap.
I have a real life too. I thought that was a good thing that we met those two.
Right.
And then, of course,
you met an author.
An author. We're going to have her on our podcast.
Right. And she also talk about.
Specializes in downsizing. And, certainly I do that. And that's been a huge part of my professional organizing business. Actually, that and moves. Particularly moving people that are downsizing. And I'm in the middle of a big move right now, which is why I'm a little
verklempt.
Busy. Right. Busy. But, I think it's important for people who are thinking about going tiny to understand how to get there.
Right,
so we're going to talk about that. It'd be nice to have another person that's kind of focused on that instead of me just, talking about that. Well,
the challenge with going tiny, of course, is not everybody, but a lot of people really want to do it. But there are a lot of people that don't have, they look at something and they go, oh, I would really love to live in that, but they don't know how to get from point A to point B and get started.
Right. And it is hard.
Yeah.
And there's a huge piece of organization, if you will, and making decisions. And decision making can be overwhelming and tiring to do. So we're going to come up with some fun way to, maybe some challenges. I don't know. But I think her name's Barbara. We're going to be coming up with some, how to go tiny.
Right.
So we'll talk about that. We'll get her on the podcast. And we're going to work on some projects together.
Right. Yeah, it was, there were some good things there.
Yeah. I'm glad I went. Yeah, I'm glad I went. Except I was freezing. But I think I would have been happier had I been awake and not cold.
Polar fleece would have been perhaps a better bet than a windbreaker.
Speaking of being unprepared, I was unprepared for the weather.
You were unprepared for the weather. It was not bad when we left where we live. It was a chilly morning, but it was sunny and the wind was not really blowing here. And we get down there, which is close to where I started my college career, and it was just as windy as it could be. It was like, man.
And I was unprepared. Okay, so
it'd be a good day for sailing.
Right. So that's mainly what I had on my plate.
All right. So we've talked about work from your tiny home.
Yep.
Or you want to talk more about that? Kiki's apparel. Beth is going to interview her. She's the young lady that pulls a tiny house
Pop-up shop.
Pop-up
we'll just call
shop.
It that.
Yeah, I don't know what else you could call it. But
Yeah.
she goes to festivals. But she doesn't just do tiny house festivals. She also does some other festivals around the Atlanta area, maybe in the Southeast. I don't know where else she might go, but we'll have to talk to her about that.
We'll find out.
We will. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
We are getting ready to take a trip.
Thank God. I need to get away. I mean, I love you and everything, but I'm ready to go.
So
of course, they start going with me.
It's interesting. So. Yes, you're taking a trip. You're ready to get away from me, but I'm going with you.
Because you're my driver.
So, yes, I am your driver because you would fall asleep at the wheel.
Probably would.
And I've done that. It's not a good idea.
We just talked about that.
We are, we have become addicted.
Funny enough, Barry.
I love this show. It's called Hometown. It's on Discovery Channel, so we watch it a lot on Discovery Plus.
Well, it's an HG.
It's also HG, yeah. But Ben and Aaron live in Napier, I believe is their last name. They live in Laurel, Mississippi, booming metropolis that it is. And so we're going to Laurel, Mississippi. And
they've revitalized their town.
They have, which is amazing. And we need more people like this,
right.
Because they love their small town, and it was like many small towns in our country, basically disappearing. Right. I mean, stores were leaving downtown, restaurants were leaving, and they decided to start revitalizing the area, and not just homes, but doing stuff downtown as well. And now it's
it's an HG phenomenon.
It's an HG phenomenon. We had a hard time finding reservations.
Yes, wow, yes. We wanted to go in April because by the time May hits, southern Mississippi is going to be hot and buggy.
Yes,
and humid. It's going to be hot in April anyway.
There are two things I've been there and done that on. One of them is Mississippi in the summer, and the other is Louisiana in the summer.
And
this
really
is hot.
But we finally found a cottage.
Right.
And we're going to take our, what we call a gizmo, but it's a gimbal.
It's a gimbal. We're going to take cameras.
Do some videoing and stuff. But, the whole notion of...
But they also have a tiny house manufacturer in Laurel, Mississippi. So we're going to go down and talk to them.
Yep. And just do, small town, because that's our best bet for tiny house living.
Right.
Small towns, living outside of small towns that are now getting... that's what's happened to our town. It's getting... We chose to live here because there's a town. Right? I don't want to live in the woods in a rural place where I never have a chance to go to coffee or go out to dinner or anything like that. I don't want to have to do that. We're maybe 15 minutes from town. But funny enough, we often go to the bigger town just because it's got all the chains. But our little town has the more...
Well, we have Starbucks. We do have... I mean, we have any fast food restaurant you could want here in town, almost.
Almost. But yeah, we kind of go to both. We have the option of both. But, I think the way that we can live tiny, one of the big ways that we can do this is to live in smaller towns, revitalize smaller towns. The internet is now starting to go, 5G. We've talked about that before. We finally had to get 5G in order to get our YouTube uploads to work correctly. So, it's just small town, I think, is a great answer for tiny home dwellers.
It used to be, living in a small town, it was hard to work from home.
Yeah.
Because of... there was no internet, before 30, 40 years ago. Well, there was technically, but nobody had it at home. But lately, it's been, when we moved up here, we had 3 megs per second. That's horrible.
And the upload speed is crazy.
Upload is bad, but they've upgraded us to, we've got up to 50 download.
And upload is still crappy.
And upload is still horrible. But
we're trying to get that fixed this week.
Yes. So
anyway, I have to scoot.
Okay, Beth has to scoot. So then I guess we'll say goodbye.
Yeah. I think we'll finish up.
Well, this was an interesting podcast from the time we got to the office. And it's still been kind of interesting. I think it's good to just kind of talk about some of the stuff that people want to know about.
Yeah.
Be prepared. Thanks for listening. You can find us at radiotinyhouse.com. You can email us, rather, at radiotinyhouse@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.